Everybody. Welcome back to day 2 of our fireside chats. It's time for our second short story. I hope you enjoyed the first one, AMP, with Sammy and Stokesy and Lingle and Queenie and the girls. It was a good one. I like it, right? I like the story. I read your work. Thank you for submitting most of you, all but one, submitted the assignment. I really interested in question number 4 the most. Is the one I mentioned in the video at the end about why is it fatal to not follow through with a gesture once you start it. And I got answers all over the place. Life's going to be hard for him because he's uneducated, because his parents going to be mad at him. He doesn't have a job now and stuff like that. But the real crux of it, right? The real meat of it was that life was going to be difficult for him moving on because he was going to be a counterculturalist. And by counterculturalist, I mean someone who is countercultural, who swims against the stream, who doesn't do what everybody else does just because everybody else is doing it. And see how he describes the people at AMP up and down the aisles like sheep, avocado, asparagus, avocado, asparagus, avocado, asparagus. What a bomb could go off in the AMP and they just keep right on shopping. And there was Lingle looking old as a sheep came in the aisle and he just checked them in and out. Yes, it's true that Sammy quit as a heroic gesture to impress the girls at first, right? That was a main impetus when he first did it. And I'm going to press you. I quit. You're being mean to these girls. I quit. Look how cool I am. Right. But it's more than that. Because when they left, Lingle said, "What'd you say, Sammy? I don't think you want to do this. Your parents going to be upset." You got to go, no, yeah, no, never mind. Some teenage thing and save face and then kept his job. But he didn't. And it's more than impressing the girls. Once you start a gesture, it's fatal if you don't follow through with it. Why? Because you're giving up your ideals, you're giving up your values, you're giving up your integrity. And life is going to be difficult for him because he's not going to just be a lemming and fit in and march in a long line over the cliff into his death. He's not going to be a sheep. He's going to be someone who stands up and opposes the hypocrisy of the mundane. Fist in the air in the land of hypocrisy. All right, a little Rage Against the Machine there. Life is going to be difficult as he goes forward. Think about your own lives. Think about how easy it is to blend into the scenery when something is going on. When one of your friends is belittling or bullying or being mean, or there's a relationship thing going on and you don't want to take sides, how easy it is to not get involved and just live your life. Right? That's the sheep. That's the AMP. That's Lingle. But the person who says, stop, yeah, I know we're friends, but you can't treat other people that way. That's not right. Leave him alone. Stop being mean to him. Right? You're really risking it. You're putting yourself out there, and maybe you're afraid your friends are going to ridicule you, or they're not going to like you anymore. They're not going to be your friend anymore. Well, if a person won't be your friend because you're sticking up for someone, then that person doesn't need to be your friend after all. Right? I did a 47-minute Raisin in the Sun video, which is way too long. I understand that. Long on class even. Hope they broke it up into 2 different videos. But I was talking for a while. I get going and talking about my musings and things that I think and believe and that I want to share with you. And hopefully you take in some of it and at some point in your life in those quiet moments it pops back into your head or something happens and you recall a conversation or discussion we had. Now, I was out so much this year. Again, I'm so sorry for that. I feel like I've cheated you out of an education. I just feel horrible about that. I was out so much and then we closed and I've been at home. So I haven't had all the discussions I'd hoped, especially Heart of Darkness. But I want you to think about this. Because I talked about this at length in the Raisin. You can come over here in the Raisin the Sun video. That I wholeheartedly believe that love is a quantifiable force. That it is the void which binds, and I don't mean love as a feeling. I mean love as an action, as a thing, as a natural phenomenon. That gravitational waves, which I believe was Einstein said that there was such thing as gravitational waves, and they weren't able to be proved. It wasn't being able to be proved. They weren't proven. Science recently has shown and proven the existence of those gravitational waves. That gravitational waves travel across the universe like light does. Do you need Marin? Marin, he needs you, babe. You can come back in a minute. That gravitational waves, like light, travel across the universe. And I believe, wholeheartedly believe, that one day, probably long after I am dead and gone, that they're going to prove that love, not the feeling, not the emotion, but love itself is a quantifiable, measurable, able to be documented and proven force of nature that goes across the universe. If you've done Hyperion, you know about the void which binds. But it is the void which binds. Love is. It holds everything together. One sec. What's up? What's the problem? Okay, it's all right. So your details, you have to do 3 details of your story, right? And you said she tried to show him 3 times about Winter. And the first time he was still frowned, the second time he still frowned, the third time he smiled. So what happened the first time when he still frowned? What did she show him? How? Okay, what happened the second time? Okay, ice skating? And what happened? Oh, on their feet. Okay, and what happened the third time? When he really liked it. Okay, so think about that. Your first detail is the snowman. The second detail is they went feet skating, and the third detail is whatever happened then. Told him. You could just say the first detail is they built a snowman, and he was still unhappy, or still didn't like winter. Okay, got to do this. Okay, can you tell me afterwards? Okay, go ahead. Tell me. Built. And she was trying to get off. Gracious. All right, love you. Go back up there. All right. So I know I lost my train of thought, and I'm sorry, but family's family, and love those babies. I want to, and I'll come back to this at the point of the end. I hope I remember. Mary, remind me to come back to you telling me a story at the end of my video. Okay, remind me. Okay. Okay. So I made this really long video, and I'm not really sure what I was saying when I said all this. Why I want to tell you I made this really long video about love being quantifiable force. So I do believe it. Okay. All right. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. Okay. So let's go back to our books. It's on page 562. It's called Zero Hour by Ray Bradbury, one of my favorite um, sci-fi writers. If you've read Fahrenheit 451, that's Ray Bradbury, The Martian Chronicles. Okay. And I did put the PDF of it on the topics page. So if you don't have your book, you can go there and look at it. All right. 0 Hour 1947. It's written in 47 sometime in the future. Oh, it was to be so jolly. What a game. Such excitement they hadn't known in years. The children catapulted this way and that across the green lawn, shouting at each other, holding hands, flying in circles, climbing trees, laughing. Overhead, the rockets flew and beetle cars whispered by on the streets. But the children played on. Such fun, such tremulous joy, such tumbling and hearty screaming. Mink ran into the house all dirt and sweat. For her 7 years, she was loud and long, strong and definite. Her mother, Mrs. Morris, hardly saw her as she yanked out drawers and rattled pans and tools into a large sack. So we know our main character is Mink Morris, and she's 7 years old. Heavens, Mink, what's going on? The most exciting game ever, gasped Mink, pink-faced. Stop and get your breath, said the mother. No, I am all right, gasped Mink. Okay, I take these things, Mom? But don't dent them, said Mrs. Morris. Thank you, cried Mink, and boom, she was gone like a rocket. Mrs. Morris surveyed the fleeting tot. What's the name of the game? Invasion, said Mink. The door slammed. In every yard on the street, children brought out knives and forks and pokers and old stovepipes and can openers. It was an interesting fact that this fury and bustle occurred only among the younger children. The older ones, those 10 years and more, disdained the affair and marched scornfully off on hikes or played a more dignified version of hide and seek on their own. Meanwhile, parents came and went in chromium beetles. Repairmen came to repair the vacuum elevators in houses, to fix fluttering television sets, or hammer upon stubborn food delivery tubes. The adult civilization passed and repassed the busy youngsters, jealous of the fierce energy of the wild tots, tolerantly amused at their flourishings, longing to join in themselves. This, and this, and this, said Mink, instructing the others with their assorted spoons and wrenches. Do that, and bring that over here. No, here, ninny. Right, now get back while I fix this. Tongue in teeth, face wrinkled in thought. Like that, see? Yay! Shouted the kids. It's a little loud. 12-year-old Joseph Connors ran up. Go away, said Mink straight at him. I want to play, said Joseph. Can't, said Mink. Why not? You just make fun of us. Honest, I wouldn't. No, we know you. Go away or we'll kick you. Another 12-year-old boy whirred by on little motor skates. Hi, Joe, come on, let them sissies play. Joseph showed reluctance and certain wistfulness. I want to play, he said. You're old, said Mink firmly. Not that old, said Joe sensibly. You'd only laugh and spoil the invasion. Joseph walked off slowly. He kept looking back all down the block. Mink was already busy again. She made a kind of apparatus with her gathered equipment. She had appointed another little girl with a pad and pencil to take down notes in painful, slow scribbles. Their voices rose and fell in the warm sunlight. All around them, the city hummed. The streets were lined with good green and peaceful trees. Only the wind made a conflict across the city, across the country, across the continent. In thousand other cities, there were trees and children and avenues, businessmen in their quiet offices, taping their voices or watching televisors. Rockets hovered like darning needles in the blue sky. There was the universal quiet conceit. These are hard pages to turn. They're so thin. Let me try that. I really can't turn these pages. There was the universal quiet conceit and uneasiness of men accustomed to peace, quite certain there would never be trouble again. Arm in arm, men all over the earth were a united front. The perfect weapons were held in equal trust by all nations. A situation of incredibly beautiful balance had been brought about. There were no traitors among men, no unhappy ones, no disgruntled ones. Therefore, the world was based upon a stable ground. Sunlight illumined half the world, and the trees drowsed in a tide of warm air. Mink's mother, from her upstairs window, gazed down. The children. She looked upon them and shook her head. Well, they'd eat well, sleep well, and be in school on Monday. Bless their vigorous little bodies. She listened. Mink talked earnestly to someone near the rose bush, though there was no one there. Constitution. What's the question? Mink talked earnestly to someone near the rose bush, though there was no one there. These odd children. And the little girl, what was her name? Anna? Anna took notes on a pad. First, Mink asked the rosebush a question, then called the answer to Anna. Triangle, said Mink. What's a said Anna with difficulty. Angle? Never mind, said Mink. How you spell it? Asked Anna. T-R-I, spelled Mink slowly, then snapped. Oh, spell it yourself. She went on to other words. Beam, she said. I haven't got said Anna. Angle down yet. Well, hurry, hurry, cried Mink. Mink's mother leaned out the upstairs window. A-N-G-L-E, she spelled down at Anna. Oh, thanks, Mrs. Morris, said Anna. Certainly, said Mink's mother, and withdrew, laughing, to dust the hall with an electro-duster magnet. The voices wavered on the shimmery air. Beam, said Anna, fading. 4, 9, 7, A and B and X, said Mink, far away seriously. And a fork and a string and a hexagony, Hexagonal. At lunch, Mink gulped milk at one toss and was at the door. Her mother slapped the table. You sit right back down, commanded Mrs. Morris. Hot soup in a minute. She poked a red button on the kitchen butler, and 10 seconds later something landed with a bump at the rubber receiver. Mrs. Morris opened it, took out a can with a pair of aluminum holders, unsealed it with a flick, and poured hot soup into a bowl. During all this, Mink fidgeted. Hurry, Mom! This is a matter of life and death. Aw! I was the same way at your age, always life and death, I know. Mink banged away at the soup. Slow down, said Mom. Can't, said Mink. Drill's waiting for me. Who's Drill? What a peculiar name, said Mom. You don't know him, said Mink. A new boy in the neighborhood? Asked Mom. He's new, all right, said Mink. She started on her second bowl. Which one is Drill? Asked Mom. He's around, said Mink evasively. You'll make fun. Everybody pokes fun. Gee darn. Is Drill shy? Yes. No, in a way. Gosh, Mom, I gotta run if we want to have the invasion. Who's invading what? Martians invading Earth. Well, not exactly Martians. They're, I don't know, from up. She pointed with her spoon. And inside, said Mom, touching Mink's feverish brow. Mink rebelled. You're laughing. You'll kill Drill and everybody. I didn't mean to, said Mom. Drill's a Martian? No, he's, well, maybe from Jupiter, Saturn, or Venus. Anyway, he's had a hard time. I imagine, Mrs. Morris hit her mouth behind her hand. They couldn't figure a way to attack Earth. We're impregnable, said Mom in a mock seriousness. That's the word Drill used, That's the word, Mom. My, Drill's a brilliant little boy. 2-bit words. They couldn't figure a way to attack, Mom, Drill says. He says in order to make a good fight, you got to have a new way of surprising people. That way you win. And he says also you got to have help from your enemy. A fifth column, said Mom. Yeah, that's what Drill said. And they couldn't figure a way to surprise Earth or get help. No wonder, we're pretty darn strong, laughed Mom, cleaning up. Mink sat there staring at the table, seeing what she was talking about. Until one day, whispered Mink melodramatically, they thought of children. Well, said Mrs. Morris brightly, and they thought of how grown-ups are so busy they never look under rose bushes or on lawns, only for snails and fungus. And then there's something about dim-dims. Dim-dims? Dimensions. 4 of them. And there's something about kids under 9 and imagination. It's real funny to hear Drill talk. Mrs. Morris was tired. Well, it must be funny. You're keeping Drill waiting now. It's getting late in the day, and if you want to have your invasion before your supper bath, you better jump. Do I have to take a math? Growled Mink. You do. Why is it children hate water? No matter what age you live in, children hate water behind the ears. Drill says I won't have to take baths, said Mink. Oh, he does he? He told all the kids that. No more baths. And we can stay up until 10 o'clock and go to 2 televisor shows on Saturday instead of 1. Well, Mr. Drill better mind his P's and Q's. I'll call up his mother and... Mink went to the door. We're having trouble with guys like Pete Britz and Dale Jarrett. They're growing up. They make fun. They're worse than parents. They just won't believe in Drill. They're so snooty because they're growing up. You'd think they'd know better. They were little only a couple of years ago. I hate them worst. We'll kill them first. Your father and I last? Drill says you're dangerous. Know why? Because you don't believe in Martians. They're going to let us run the world. Well, not just us, but the kids over in the next block, too. I might be queen. She opened the door. Mom? Yes. What's logic? Logic? Why, dear, logic is knowing what things are true and not true. He mentioned that, said Mink. And what's impressionable? It took her a minute to say it. Why, it means... Her mother looked at the floor, laughing gently. It means to be a child, dear. Thanks for lunch. Mink ran out and then stuck her head back in. Mom, I'll be sure you won't be hurt much, really. Well, thanks, said Mom. Slam went the door. At 4 o'clock, the audio visor buzzed. Mrs. Morris flipped the tab. Hello, Helen, she said in welcome. Hello, Mary. How are things in New York? Fine. How are things in Scranton? You look tired. So do you. The children underfoot, said Helen. Mrs. Morris sighed. My Mink, too. The super invasion. Helen laughed. Are your kids playing that game, too? Lord, yes. Tomorrow it'll be geometrical jacks and motorized hopscotch. Were we this bad when we were kids in 48? Worse. Japs and Nazis. Don't know how my parents put up with me. Tomboy. Parents learn to shut their ears. A silence. What's wrong, Mary? Asked Helen. Mrs. Morris's eyes were half closed. Her tongue slid slowly, thoughtfully over her lower lip. Eh? She jerked. Oh, nothing. Just thought about that. Shutting ears and such. Never mind. Where were we? My boy Tim's got a crush on some guy named Drill, I think it was. Must be a new password. Mink likes him too. Didn't know it got as far as New York. Word of mouth, I imagine. Looks like a scrap drive. I talked to Josephine and she said her kids, that's in Boston, are wild on this new game. It's sweeping the country. At this moment, Mink trotted into the kitchen to gulp a glass of water. Mrs. Morse turned. How are things going? Almost finished, said Mink. Swell, said Mrs. Morse. What's that? A yo-yo, said Mink. Watch. She flung the yo-yo down its string, reaching the end. It vanished. See? Said Mink. Oh! Dibbling her fingers, she made the yo-yo reappear and zip up the string. Do that again, said her mother. Can't. 0 hours, 5 o'clock. Bye. Mink exited, zipping her yo-yo. On the audio visor, Helen laughed. Tim brought one of those yo-yos in this morning. When I got curious, he said he wouldn't show it to me. And when I tried to work it, finally, it wouldn't work. You're not impressionable, said Mrs. Morris. What? Never mind. Something I thought of. Can I help you, Helen? I wanted to get the black and white cake recipe. What's wrong? What? You can't get it off? Hang on 1 second. All right, thanks. The hour drowsed by, the day waned, the sun lowered in the peaceful blue sky, shadows lengthened on the green lawns, the laughter and excitement continued. One little girl ran away crying. Mink was bent over in the yard near the rose bush. Wow, I skipped that, sorry. Mrs. Morse came out the front door. Mink, was that Peggy Ann crying? Mink was bent over in the yard near the rose bush. Yeah, she's a scare baby. We won't let her play now. She's getting too old to play. I guess she grew up all of a sudden. Is that why she cried? Nonsense. Give me a civil answer, young lady, or inside you come. Mink whirled in consternation mixed with irritation. I can't quit now. It's almost time. I'll be good. I'm sorry. Did you hit Peggy Ann? No, honest. You ask her. It was something. Well, she's just a scaredy pants. The ring of children drew in around Mink, where she scouted her work with spoons and a kind of square-shaped arrangement of hammers and pipes. There and there, murmured Mink. What's wrong? Said Mrs. Morris. Drill's stuck. Halfway. If we could only get him all the way through, it'll be easier. Then all the others could come through after him. Can I help? No, thanks. I'll fix it. All right. I'll call you in for your bath in half an hour. I'm tired of watching you. She went in and sat in the electric relaxing chair, sipping a little beer from a half-empty glass. The chair massaged her back. Children. Children. Children and love and hate side by side. Sometimes children loved you, hated you all in half a second. Strange children. Did they ever forget or forgive the whippings and the harsh, strict words of command? She wondered. How can you ever forget or forgive those over and above you, those tall and silly dictators? Time passed. A curious waiting silence came upon the street, deepening. 5 o'clock. A clock sang softly somewhere in the house in a quiet, musical voice. 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. Time's a wasting. 5 o'clock. And purred away into silence. 0 hour. Mrs. Morse chuckled in her throat. 0 hour. A beetle car hummed into the driveway. Mr. Morris. Mrs. Morris smiled. Mr. Morris got out of the beetle, locked it, and called hello to Mink at her work. Mink ignored him. He laughed and stood for a moment watching the children and their business. Then he walked up the front steps. Hello, darling. Hello, Henry. She strained forward on the edge of the chair, listening. The children were silent. Too silent. He emptied his pipe, refilled it. Swell day. Makes you glad to be alive. What is it, baby? That's true. You. All right. So the husband comes home. Quiet. Too quiet. Too silent. He emptied his pipe, refilled it. Swell day. Makes you glad to be alive. Buzz. What's this? What's that? Asked Henry. I don't know. She got up suddenly, her eyes widening. She was going to say something. She stopped it. Ridiculous. Her nerves jumped. Those children haven't anything dangerous out there, have they? She said. Nothing but pipes and hammers. Why? Nothing electrical? Heck no, said Henry. I looked. She walked to the kitchen. The buzzing continued. Just the same, you'd better go tell them to quit. It's after 5. Tell them. Her eyes widened and narrowed. Tell them to put off their invasion until tomorrow. She laughed nervously. The buzzing grew louder. What are they up to? I'd better go look, all right. The explosion. The house shook with a dull sound. There were other explosions in other yards and other streets. Involuntarily, Mrs. Moore screamed, Up this way! She cried senselessly, knowing no sense, no reason. Perhaps she saw something from the corner of her eyes. Perhaps she smelled a new odor or heard a new noise. There was no time to argue with Henry to convince him. Let him think her insane. Yes, insane. Shrieking, she ran upstairs. He ran after her to see what she was up to. In the attic, she screamed. That's where it is. It was only a poor excuse to get him in the attic in time. Oh, God, in time. Another explosion outside. The children screamed with delight as if at a great fireworks display. It's not in the attic, cried Henry. It's outside. No, no. Wheezing, gasping, she fumbled at the attic door. I'll show you. Hurry, I'll show you. They tumbled into the attic. She slammed the door, locked it, took the key, threw it into a far, cluttered corner. She was babbling wild stuff now. It came out of her, all the subconscious suspicion and fear that had gathered secretly all afternoon and fermented like a wine in her. All the little revelations and knowledges and sense that had bothered her all day, and which she had logically and carefully and sensibly rejected and censored. Now it exploded in her and shook her to bits. There, she said, sobbing against the door. We're safe until tonight. Maybe we can sneak out. Maybe we can escape. Henry blew up too, but for another reason. Are you crazy? Why'd you throw that key away? Damn it, honey. Yes, I'm crazy if it helps, but stay here with me. I don't know how in hell I can get out. Quiet. They'll hear us. Oh, God, they'll find us soon enough. Below them, Mink's voice, Mink's voice. The husband stopped. There was a great universal humming and sizzling, a screaming and giggling. Downstairs, the audio televisor buzzed and buzzed insistently, alarmingly, violently. Is that Helen calling? Thought Mrs. Morris. Is she calling about what I think she's calling about? Footsteps came into the house. Heavy footsteps. Who's coming in my house? Demanded Henry angrily. Who's tramping around down there? Heavy feet. 20, 30, 40, 50 of them. 50 persons crowding into the house. The humming, the giggling of children. This way, cried Mink below. Who's downstairs? Roared Henry. Who's there? Hush! Oh, no, said his wife weakly, holding him. Please be quiet. They might go away. Mom, called Mink. Dad? A pause. Where are you? Heavy footsteps. Heavy, very heavy footsteps came up the stairs, Mink leading them. Mom? A hesitation. Dad? A waiting, a silence, humming, footsteps toward the attic. Mink's first. They trembled together in silence in the attic, Mr. and Mrs. Morris. For some reason, the electric humming, the queer, cold light suddenly visible under the door crack, the strange odor, the alien sound of eagerness in Mink's voice finally got through to Henry Morris, too. He stood shivering in the dark silence, his wife beside him. Mom! Dad! Footsteps. A little humming sound. The attic lock melted. The door opened. Mink peered inside, tall blue shadows behind her. Peekaboo, said Mink. Oh, all right. So my battery's about to die, and I don't have the cord in here. So let me say this quickly. I got to get this message off. Hopefully she's still recording. So, right, the Mrs. Moore started to put it together, how adults shut their ears to the kids. I said I'd come back to Marion wanting to tell me something. And I stopped, even though I was trying to do this video, because oftentimes, more times than we should, adults dismiss kids as if they don't have anything important to say. I can't remember the exact thing that was happening the other day, but it was either Marion or Jason wanted to say something. It was Marion wanted to say something, and it was like, no, stop, we're trying to do something. And when someone finally listened to her, she had the answer to the problem. She knew what we should do to fix whatever we were doing. I can't remember what it was now, but I was like, this is a perfect example of why we shouldn't dismiss kids just because they're kids. Oh, they're young and naive and impressionable and don't understand things. And the Martians or the Venetians or the Jupiterians use that, right? They knew they wouldn't listen to kids. They wouldn't believe kids. So go to the kids. They'll be the fifth column. They'll be your help from the enemy. And if we get the kids involved and promise them things like no baths and 2 movies and whatnot, then we can invade and be successful. So the message here is don't ignore your kids or you might get invaded by Martians, right? No. And it's the same thing with you guys. Even as teachers, teachers tend to dismiss you guys. Oh, you're just teenagers. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, your voice isn't important. And you know that I know your voice is important. And I want to hear your voice. Don't stop. Don't stop shouting your voice from the rafters. Don't stop. Speak up for people who are in need. Love people when it's not easy to do so. It's easy to love folks when everything's going well. It's easy to be nice to those who are nice to you. Love folks when they've made a mistake. Love folks when they've hurt you, when they've disappointed you, when they've made a big mistake. Love people then. Love them the most then. Okay, I'm going to put up something to respond to. If there are not any questions, I'm going to put some questions up for you to respond to or a prompt for you to respond to on the website. Hope you enjoyed the story 0 hour. Watch out for that 5 o'clock time. And if the kids are out playing with knives, it's kind of funny, right? Send the kids out with knives and pokers, fire pokers and hammers and stuff, and no big deal, right? We'd never do that now. But all right, see you next time. Enjoy the story, and we'll do another short story later. I'll see you on Wednesday for Mackenzie's poetry project and Thursday for Tom's poetry project. And then I'll send out invites for next week for the other ones. All right, be happy, be healthy. I love you. I do.